Welcome back to Chapter 17. Now it's time for Part 2 of Daybreaks. The different parts don't get their own chapter titles or anything. This is still just the same chapter, but thankfully you get to save in between parts. So Tibba and the Hawks are here too. Everyone's converging in the forest. I really like this as the big end to this story arc. Everything is all just coming together at this point. Well, that won't be good for us, because we were tasked with finding him. So this is why I wanted to deploy all three of these characters in part 1. To get the full version of this scene, you need to have Mist, Leth, and Mordecai all deployed in the first part of the map. If you don't, like if some of them are missing, there are a lot of variations on this scene. All of them mention the sound, but this one is the most expansive of the variations. Also, Leth has some pretty good dialogue towards the end of this, if you brought her. And we wouldn't actually find this out if we didn't bring Mist, so that's good. If you don't bring any of the three, Nasir is the one who explains the entire thing about the sound. So if the herons don't fight, what are their powers? Well, we're about to find out. If you're familiar with certain mechanics of the Fire Emblem series, you probably know where this is going. Well, all those powers are entirely supportive or defensive, which wouldn't have exactly helped them. This is kind of a weird line because this balance term gets brought up later on, and given Radiant Dawn, I feel like it should have been translated as order. That's all I'll say for now. And this little exchange isn't shown if you didn't bring Leth. Hey, she's developing. Nice. Yeah, if anyone's wondering why I like her but not Shinnon, that's why. She actually gets development. He doesn't. And meanwhile, in the third quadrant of the forest, which we'll no doubt get to later, well, we'd better do something about that before that happens. So here we get to choose up to 2 people to add to our team as reinforcements. We can also access items, but here's the thing. We can only access the convoy with characters that are not currently deployed. So that's why I gave everyone here that I plan on bringing as reinforcements a bunch of extra weapons and staves and the like. So I think I'll choose... I'm bringing Boyd mainly because I will need him to show a conversation later. And I guess I'll bring Karen. You can choose no reinforcements, and that's what I'll be doing quite a few times. Also, you can't reposition either, so you're stuck with everyone where they currently are, which is a shame because, yeah, it's like early Fire Emblem Heroes all over again. That was always irritating. Anyway, for our map, we have an Arrive chapter this time. We need to have anyone reach this space. This map can also be ended very, very quickly, and as you can see, the turn count is reset, but it's tracking your turns for every part of this chapter. We actually have a fairly strong paladin over here with a silver lance. This guy here, though, I want that Physic staff. I really want that Physic staff. So I'll be sending one of my... Actually, wait a minute. I need to bring Volk then, because I need to steal that. Anyway. Yeah, see, as you can see, you can't reposition anyone. We've got a few weapons that we can deal with here. There's someone who has something droppable, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, there we go. There's a droppable poleaxe over there. Also, I believe this is the first time we're actually facing enemy Wyvern Riders. They're pretty pathetic, though. Their speeds are just really, really low. Anyway. Right, let's go. Can't really reposition ourselves at all. Well, you keep ensuring that you won't receive any mercy from us. As you can see, there's a really large swamp in the middle of the map, so fly is your best bet for getting to the arrive point quickly. So the reinforcements will be arriving later in the map. Slightly later, at least. And I wish Gatry started a little bit further forward, but that should be fine. Oh no, Gatry's not going to double them. Oh, if he had one more speed, he would. Actually, wait a minute. No, he is going to double them because they're way down. That's pretty good, actually. So there'll be a lot of fighting against some pretty, well, not tough, but slightly semi-tough Cavaliers over on this end of the map. So if you want to go there, then you might want to bring some powerful characters who have decent ranged weapons. So in this case, I think, like, as much as I really want Jill to go this way, but I don't want her to be hogging all the experience. I forgot I could even reach this square. Yeah, it's funny, there's a lot of, like, little individual squares all down the sides here that you can actually get to. I remember when I first played this game, I had a lot of fun finding which exact areas of the map that you were allowed to go to. It's not quite boundary breaking because you are, like, they're perfectly valid spaces to move to. It's just, kind of funny because there's no real point in going to all of those places. Might as well equip that. As much as I really want you to... Oh, you're already at a D in fire. Okay. I guess I could use an arm scroll to get you to an A eventually when I need it. I think Titania will head over here, and meanwhile Nephilim will head here. Don't really know where I need my healer, and Volk won't be coming for a little while. Might need some shoving, or rather some smiting action over here, because that's where my bad movement characters are going. Only one of them could attack Soren, so I think I'm fine here. Also, Soren is going to have Ike support, which at the moment is the only thing Ike is good for, because I don't want him fighting. But yeah, the support's going to ensure that Soren is going to be very hard to hit. Dark Affinity raises evasion slightly. Not as much as Earth, but it raises it a little bit, so that's at least kind of decent. I do like how they added a whole bunch of new affinities in this game compared to the GBA games. Though Heaven Affinity is still really not that great. I find there's actually one very specific use for Heaven Affinity late into the second game. It's not a very good use, but it's at least a use. I'd like you to be getting a little bit of defense, Gatry. But some will also say that Heaven Affinity supports on Stefan with Gamble are kind of useful. That requires getting rid of Astra, though. Well, also, yes, critical animation. Kind of like how Generals crit in this game, but the sword critical animation is actually even better looking for them. Even though I don't have Gatry use his sword all that often here. Okay, there are a lot of quite strong range Cavaliers over there. See if you can look at this here. Plus 15 avoid. Not that amazing, but still alright. Soren can't quite attack that Paladin yet. Does have 69 avoid though, which is decent. Might as well try and bring the Thunder here. You gotta remember that Ike support also gives him +1 attack. Which may be the difference between killing something and not killing it, depending on how things go. Speaking of depending on how things go, I'll have to see whether or not I have this in the same part as part 3 or not. It depends on how this goes. Let's see, we've got Iron Lance and Iron Blade. Guess I can probably have Stefan go, although that means that's in range of the... Because I kind of want that Paladin to attack Soren for obvious reasons. I want it to die to a counterattack. Even though this isn't really a route chapter, not... Obviously, it's not really a route chapter. It isn't a route chapter, but yeah. So like making sure enemies die on the enemy phase to save time is not that critical here, but I still like to do it because, yeah. Again, this music is all right, but it's still not my favorite map theme by far, especially since it replaced the really amazing song Grail Mercenaries, which was the map theme for chapters 8 to 14, which. As of recording this video, recently was a tap battle song in Heroes, which was cool. I like that they finally added some variety to that, apart from the hot spring. I mean, it was still basically the same as the hot spring, but it was at least slightly different. Tap battle's kind of fun sometimes. Although I wish you actually got more rewards for playing on hard mode than you did for, like, because it doesn't give you any additional rewards as of now for hard mode. And since some of the hard mode tap battle maps can get, maps, like levels, can get pretty crazy, I wish there was some incentive for actually doing that. Remembering when some of the earlier tap battle stages... Might as well have you try and find some of them. Some of the earlier... Actually, no, wait, I wanted you to attack Soren, so I'll have to avoid that. Some of the earlier tap battle stages, you didn't see, like, even Cavaliers unless you're on hard mode. But Pegasus Knights are interesting to fight in tap battle. Oh, you know, speaking of, okay, to make this a little more relevant to this game, one of the tap battle stages, I think it was one of the Ike fights there. It made me disappointed that there weren't more Path of Radiance characters in Heroes at the moment, because, like, there's Oscar, there's Titania, there's Soren, there's Mist, but I think it was, like, only Oscar and Soren who showed up to assist Ike in that boss fight, which was kind of a shame. I wished Boyd was there. And that's actually a useful crit. Also, we're going to see it here. We're going to see it... no. Sometimes when enemy, like generic enemy paladins die, their cape clips in a very weird way, where it looks like a giant hole got ripped in it. Which I like for flavor, because, you know, you just fought the paladin, obviously, its cape's going to be ripped. I mean, you know, then... Fates went a little too far in that regard. I was never really a fan of the stripping weapons. I thought that was kind of silly, especially since, apart from Sophie's personal skill, there was never any actual gameplay benefit to it. Oh yeah, everyone has a unique quote for being summoned as a reinforcement, by the way. And Volk is still Volk. However, that quote doesn't actually apply here, because the only thing he charges for is opening chests, and there aren't any chests here, so... He actually isn't, costing any more than he normally would. Actually running a little low on some of Soren's weapons. I'll need to be careful of that. But, yeah, that line's kind of funny. Someone in the comments said that they saw Volk being voiced by Steve Bloom. I can see that. Steve Bloom. I always thought that Sizor was at first, but actually it's Ben Diskin doing a really, really good Steve Bloom impersonation. It's interesting. I hadn't heard much of Ben Diskin until kind of, like, semi-recently, and then... then he was in a lot of things, and he was really good in most of them. Like, he managed quite a lot of range in Fates. That's a waste of experience, but I just want to get rid of you. And then he was also in Lost Dimension. He was in quite a few things. Max Middleman is also another pretty good Rising Star voice actor, I find. And that's also classic Stefan. I don't know if I've said this before, but like when Persona 5 was first announced, I always pictured Ryuji being voiced by Kaiji Tang, and then he ended up being Max Middleman. But he sounded pretty much like I expected him to. I totally called Matthew Mercer voicing Yusuke, though. The moment that I found out Yusuke was Tomokazu Sugita, I was like, okay, he's getting voiced by Matthew Mercer in English, definitely. And I was not wrong. And here we can see the irritating swamp in its natural habitat. Natural habitat being absolutely nowhere because everyone hates it. At least Neffing's almost out of it, and at least it doesn't hurt you like the swamps in Echoes. Yeah, those swamps were a little annoying. Well, not a little annoying. Though I did love the way that Dolph's Fort looked. That map, just with the with like the swamp water spewing out of those. Were they dragon heads or like demon heads or something? It was a really cool looking map. But anyway, I suppose I should finish my my tangent with that. I was like, yeah, it was pretty much guessed that it would be Matthew Mercer voicing Yusuke. Because for those who don't know, Matthew Mercer and Tomokazu Sugita have shared a lot of roles. They were both Chrom in Fire Emblem Awakening, they were both Alvin in Tales of Exilia, and now they're both Yusuke in Persona. And that's why when I finally, like, I'm not going to say if, when, I will meet Matthew Mercer at a convention one day. He is at the top of my to-meet list in terms of voice actors. Also, here's where Jill gets ridiculous once she starts consistently one-rounding things with hand axes. But, anyway, and I don't really know what I'm going to have him sign, because I could have him sign my Taldore campaign guide, which I actually finally managed to get hold of. Managed to get hold of the day after I met Travis and Laura at a convention, because I was really jealous of all the people there who had had the source book, and then I just found a really small, like, indie game store the next day in Adelaide, where I was. And they just happened to have a copy of the Taldore campaign guide. I was like, okay, getting that, definitely. But yeah, but I don't know, I feel like it's a little cliche to get him to sign that, because there's also, I could get him to sign my Persona 5 art book, or sign my Persona 4 art book as kanji, because currently I have 2 signatures in that art book. I've got, I have Laura Bailey, and I have, Johnny Young Bosch, that's it, Johnny Young Bosch, who voices you. I have those 2. My dream is to get a full signed art book someday. Annoyingly, I did not have my Persona 3 art book when I when I met Vic Mignogna at a convention. I did manage to tell him how much I loved his performance as Junpei, though. But anyway, yeah, I'm going on tangents here. You can probably tell there's not much for me to talk about in this chapter. It's just a very basic go through a small-ish map, kill enemies, hit arrive point. It's really not all that interesting. Really, the only thing I want here is the Physic staff. Also, enemy Wyvern Riders, finally. With their very deep red tinted Wyverns. They're also pathetic here. They'll get a little bit better later on, but they're nowhere near as, seriously. FE6 Wyvern Riders are ridiculous. I always hated fighting them. I mean, I know that in story, Burns Wyvern Riders are supposed to be really powerful, but oh man, they were insane to fight in that game. Thankfully, though, your own Wyvern Riders were quite good there, too. I mean, I'm trying to think of a Fire Emblem game where Wyvern Riders aren't amazing. In pretty much every game they're in, Wyvern Riders are insane. Because being flying on top of having a good combination of strength, skill, speed, and defense is pretty hard to beat. Aha! Run closer to Volk. That's exactly what I want you to do. That guy's a min staff. Might as well get a little bit of experience. As you can see, I'm running through my steel sword. You do run through your weapons pretty quickly here. And that's a one-shot, isn't it? Yes, it is. So that's why you want to make sure you go into this chapter with fresh weapons. We still have 2 whole parts to do, although, let's just say part 4 tends to go by very quickly. The real threat of part 4 is not, like, actually failing it, but rather getting everything you want out of the chapter before it ends on its own accord. Oh yeah, I've shown the signatures on my Tumblr, but I got Travis Willingham to sign the Shadow Dragon manual where Camus is. You know, because it's not like I could get him to actually sign my phone or something. And, you know, he mostly remembered Longku and Brady, like his Awakening roles, but I may have been one of the only people who got him to sign something Camus-related, which, really? I hate it when that happens. Which, I thought at least one of you had a Javelin. At least I'm one-rounding the archers with a Javelin. But yeah, speaking of Camus, another tangent that I can go on, a lot of people were really shocked by his pronunciation when he got mentioned in a Heroes trailer, but I was just like, I've been pronouncing it that way the whole time. Because it's, you know, Albert Camus, the French philosopher, and also the fact that he's Japanese, like in Japanese, it's spelled Camus. But yeah, people were like, oh, lol, cow jokes, but anyway. So, we're almost done here. Like I said, though, I want to grab that Physic staff. Thankfully, he hasn't used it yet. He tends to have used it at least once by now. And here's another example of terrain not really slowing down. Also, here's a rare example of Mordecai actually doubling something. But that more goes to show just how bad these Wyvern Riders are. You're almost out of one of your hand axes. Yeah, see why I brought 2 of them? That base conversation talking about it being easy to run out of supplies here was not kidding. You want to make sure you go in here fully stocked. And maybe have some replacement weapons on reinforcements ready to trade. Like I said earlier, the reinforcements mostly exist in case anyone dies here or something. Which is not that likely, but it can easily happen. And now Mist is going to be stuck in the swamp for a bit. It's always a thing in swamps, in anything where swamps appear, swamps are usually evil. I mean, I guess this place wasn't always evil. So yeah, the swamps must have only sprung up after it got totally destroyed, but... yeah. Swamp terrain is not something you see that often in the series outside of Gaiden and this. Actually, isn't the Satoral Marsh a swamp in Xenoblade Chronicles? That place is pretty cool. I always like that place. Seriously, it's like you want me to steal your staff. Well, I'm all too happy to oblige. Your staff is now mine. There we go. And that's why thieves being able to steal items in this game is great. Because you can just swipe stars for free because they can't be equipped. It's kind of like capturing priests in FE5. Because anyone who can't fight back is automatically captured in that game. Which is really annoying when there are enemy flyers around and you have to keep your healers guarded, because the moment that any of them touches your healer, that's all your healer staff's gone. I mean, I could wait and even steal the men's staff if I wanted to, but I don't really need to do that. Might as well have Soren fight you probably from a distance, because that's safer. But yeah, I like this chapter because free Physic staff, basically. If you know how to steal it. And there are a lot of free physics staffs you can get throughout the course of the game. You can't actually buy them until chapter, doesn't even have a chapter name. You can't buy them until the final chapter, but by that point, you should probably have stolen a lot of them. And I like to save quite a few because they're pretty good in the trial maps. What are the trial maps? Well, I'll be going into those later. I do plan on doing the trial maps, by the way. Oh, the cape didn't rip there either. Spear did clip through it, though. And, yeah, Jill can now finish this. Another case of, even with weapon triangle disadvantage, the sword having higher accuracy. And Gaetru's strength is so insane that he doesn't even need to, he can do well even with an iron sword. Also, where I am, it just started thunderstorming, so I hope things are okay. I should mention that in one of the times that I practiced this chapter, the game actually crashed. It's the only time I've ever had this game crash during an actual chapter. But well, that's too mean. I may actually have to, though. I don't want to risk that steel axe. But yeah, hopefully it doesn't crash this time. Some people have mentioned that a lot of Titania's animations look very disjointed unless she uses the poleaxe, so the poleaxe seems to have been designed for her. It's basically her cannon weapon. And that's 6 turns on part 2, and might as well move Mordecai back and have Miss get some free experience with the free experience staff. Due to the sheer length of this chapter, your healers are probably going to come out of it very high leveled. And finish. I could have done that much faster, but I wanted the experience and the physics staff. No, we really don't need more reinforcements, but Ike's going to say yes anyway. The weapon situation is, though, something to worry about. And that's the end of part 2. Not a particularly long part overall. Depending on how things go, I might end up being able to fit part 3 into this, we'll see. If not, then I'll see you next time, but if I do, then, well, you'll obviously know, because the video won't be over yet.